The opening day roster is looking complete. Spring training is finally over, and I'm going to make some predictions for this 2022 Chicago White Sox team.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Sox. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just go ahead and search Locked On White Sox. Hey, I'm your host, Nick Morawski, a lifelong diehard Chicago White Sox fan, recording this just blocks from the ballpark in beautiful Bridgeport. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Really appreciate you letting me steal some of your time to talk White Sox. Locked On White Sox is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You know, if I'm not at the game, I'm watching it or I'm listening, and I'm just trying to pass my passion along, and do appreciate you joining me. We're going to talk 2022 predictions. Also want to get into spring training, just kind of put a bow on that. But first, let's get into the state of the Sox and what looks to be a complete 28-man roster. So opening day still in Detroit on Friday. It's 12 o'clock Central Standard Time. Still calling for temps in the 40s with some rain, but Saturday and Sunday look dry. Hopefully that rain is early, or at least they can play through. We're so excited for this to start happening here. You'd hate for a delay or potentially a doubleheader, but keeping our eyes on that Detroit weather. The 28-man roster is looking like this. We've got our starting pitchers, 5 of them: Giolito, Cease, Kopech, Keuchel, Velasquez, and Lopez looks to be more of a bullpen arm right now. Talked in our previous episode a lot on what Reynaldo Lopez could mean to this 2022 White Sox team. But they're going with Velasquez, and, with this rotation, with the Lynn injury, all eyes are going to be on how Tony La Russa manages this bullpen. I'm very confident in Giolito, confident in Cease, not sure what we're going to get from Kopech, not sure what we're going to get from Keuchel, and Velasquez is kind of took a flyer on this guy. We'll get into some of these arms and some of their numbers in a little bit, but those are your starting pitchers. Bullpen-wise, we've got 9 bullpen arms. Of course, Hendricks, Bummer, Graveman, Lopez, as we just talked about, Burr, Kyle Crick, Tanner Banks, Bennett Sousa, and Ruiz. We've got 6 righties and 3 lefties. If you haven't been following a lot of spring training, guys like Tanner Banks and Kyle Crick are brand new names to you, even Bennett Sousa. It'll be interesting to see how they do. There's always names that just, come out of nowhere, out of spring training. They caught some attention from the manager, from the front office, and they make the big league club. And excited to see what these guys have and what they can contribute here for this 2022 White Sox team. Because, just mentioning, I think our starting pitching, they're not going to go deep, deep into games in April and May. 3.5 weeks of spring training to get the arms ready. I think you're going to see some teams, a lot of teams, just very cautious with arms. So we're going to be relying heavily on this bullpen, and it's a good bullpen. There's some question marks here and there. I'm wondering if Lopez maybe transitions out. We'll see what Velasquez can do. Position players for this Sox team are as follows. Of course, Grandal, Abreu, Harrison, Anderson, Moncada. Vaughn looks to be your DH. Robert, Jimenez, and Pollock, and Reese McGuire, the newly acquired Reese McGuire, is going to be your backup catcher. So then on the bench, you've got Danny Mendick, Garcia, Sheets, and Engel. Well, again, I'm hoping Adam Engel can give us a relatively healthy season. It's those legs that keep giving him a problem, but I think you're going to see him in the outfield, of course, floating in a bunch of different positions when needed. Sheets, I really don't think you're going to see Sheets in right field, even though he's been given some opportunities, and we know Rick Hahn's been very bullish on Sheets and Vaughn playing some outfield. But after the AJ Pollock deal, I think you'll see Sheets, maybe some first base and DH, but we'll see. Velasquez, he is kind of the question mark. I really thought that Lopez was going to get maybe a majority of the starts while Lance Lynn is on the mend. Vince's spring training numbers are as follows: 8 2/3 innings pitched, 4 games, a 7.27 ERA. Career for Vince Velasquez, 7 seasons, an ERA just under 5. He started 21 games last year for the Phillies and Padres. So again, the numbers in spring training were not they weren't really popping off the page there. So they saw something in him, and we'll see what Ethan Katz can do. But he's going to be in that starting rotation. Might see him on the home opener on Tuesday, April 12th. So Lopez is coming out of the bullpen. In terms of position players, I think Danny Mendick might have surprised a lot of folks. I know there were a lot of Sox fans high on Romy Gonzalez. Here are Mendick's spring training numbers: 14 games, 24 at-bats, hit 125, slugged 250 with a home run and 3 RBIs. So not amazing numbers there. In Mendick's 3 seasons with the White Sox, that covers 120 games. He's hit 239 and slugged 349. But he's played virtually everywhere except for first base and catcher. Yeah, he even pitched a little bit. Mendick has primarily played second base, 59 games at second base. So, he had a pretty good spring training game, the last spring training game of the season against the Padres. We've heard him, we've seen him over the last couple of years. It just seems like the organization, would like to see a little bit more. And La Russa, he spoke about Grandal getting some time at DH, just to ease the stress on the legs. So, Reese McGuire is another guy you really need to be looking at, because if they're going to try to do that with Grandal, and it makes sense, we want Grandal for the entirety of the season and into the postseason. We want him healthy. So you're strong. You're as strong as your backup, catcher then. So we don't know much about Reese McGuire. So we'll be watching him closely as Grandal maybe takes some opportunities at first base or DH. Leury Garcia, the longest tenured White Sox player. He gets a lot of flack from a lot of fans. I've given him a hard time over the years on the Good Guys Talk Back podcast. He came over to the White Sox in the summer of 2013 for Alex Rios. That was a deal with the Rangers. He's a utility guy. I don't care what people say. You could even call him a super utility guy. But you need these types of guys on a championship team. So, it's good to have him back on the White Sox. I want to put a bow on spring training and put things in perspective. More on that in just a moment. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including this week's Masters Championship odds, podcasts, and reviews of all the different leagues this season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. We're going to talk a little more bet online. There's some really interesting odds out there in terms of Yoan Moncada, total home runs for this upcoming season. Over-unders at 19.5. I know there's a lot of folks out there, boy, if you can get over 20, they'll be very happy about that. Total RBIs for Moncada, over-unders at 69.5. So lots of great stuff on Bet Online you can check out. We're going to talk about some of that in just a moment. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. Locked On MLB Prospects host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going to go deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So spring training is over. The White Sox finished their time in Arizona with a 9-10 record, with a minus 27 run differential. The Los Angeles Angels had the best spring training run differential with plus 32. So just put things in perspective here. I don't know how much, you put stock in spring training games and some of the numbers. I do have some numbers I'm going to go through with you, though, just so you kind of have that heading into the opening day. Last year, the Chicago White Sox in 2021 during spring training were 12-12. And aside from some aches and pains, our position players, our power hitters, have remained relatively healthy this year. And that was not the case last season, referring, of course, to the Jimenez situation. So it feels really good entering the season with Robert and Jimenez healthy and starting the year off in the opening day lineup. I don't know about you, but the last few games, watching Robert run down a ball in left center or right center or hustling down to first base, I did not want to see a popped hamstring or rolled ankle or anything. You watch those plays and you're holding your breath. So they're coming into the season healthy, exciting. We talk about Robert a lot as a fan base, and hopefully he gets some national attention. I'm really excited to see a healthy Luis Robert play for a whole season. He's got the Gold Glove. I think he can be in the MVP conversation, but it's good to have him out of Arizona healthy. So how much do you take out of spring training? I'll give you some hitting and some pitching numbers. In terms of offense, the Sox were a top 10 team in regards to offensive numbers. They hit 272, slugged 471, and at an OPS of 811. Pitching wise, though, it's a different story. Not so good. Out of the 30 clubs in MLB, the Sox finished 29th in pitching for spring training. They had a 6.29 ERA. Opponents hit 299 against the Sox. And a lot of issues with walks. Kopech had a rough one, towards the end of spring training, gave up 4 walks in a short amount of time. But White Sox pitching issued 74 walks, which was tied for, I guess you want to call it the worst or the best in that category. In spring training 2021, the Sox were a top 5 pitching team. So it's really a reversal of sorts as the Sox head into the regular season. Last year, we were confident in the pitching, but we were worried about the offense. I can't wait to see what happens with this Sox lineup, but I'm worried about the pitching. I really am, especially our starting pitching. I'm going to go through some of the 2022 team predictions and individual numbers. Going to do that in just a moment. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing only the brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us section so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. In 2021, the White Sox, they won 93 games and then were bounced in the first round by Houston. We all know that tale. A lot of anger, a lot of confusion of why that happened. It just seemed like we ran out of gas, our pitching for sure. And some guys just maybe they weren't hitting on all cylinders heading into the postseason. Could it have been helpful to have home field advantage? Are you somebody that wants your team to win at all costs to get that home field advantage, or was it better to rest some guys? You know, hindsight is 2020. I think we're going to be dealing with some of those similar conversations as we go throughout this season. We're playoff bound. I mean, unless something major happens, this White Sox team should repeat as division champs. We talked about it a lot, you know, on this podcast, and I'm sure you've talked about it with friends and family and other Sox fans this offseason, that the Sox have never repeated as division champs. So that's a huge deal, but it's not why we're here, folks. We are expecting more out of this team. And look, I might come off sometimes as maybe pessimistic, but for me, it's being realistic. And yeah, this team's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be nice to sit back, relax, and see this team mash and really punish some opponents. It's going to be a fun summer, some great giveaways. Can't wait to get out to the ballpark. Hope to see a lot of listeners and talk with some Sox fans. But I'm expecting a lot more. Well, I'm going to get to that in a little bit here. So how did the Sox do kind of month by month or throughout the season last year? You know, they ended up winning the Central by 13 games. By the end of April last year in 2021, the Sox were up a game and a half in the division. By June 2nd, Sox were up a game and a half. Late in June, game and a half. By July 7th, the lead was 8 games. And at the beginning of September, it was 10 games. And of course, finishing with that 13-game lead. Now, I believe I'm someone that, you know, April matters. By a fault, I live and die by every pitch. It's just how I'm wired. I get it. I know it's a marathon, but I can't help myself. And, you know, I go back and I think about some of those games that we kind of gave away. The bullpen was mismanaged last year in the spring. And if we just had some of those games back, would the playoffs been different? Yes, I still think about this. I'm trying to get over it. It's a brand new season here, but April matters, May matters. They count just as much as in August and September. So I'm hopeful that the offense can pick up maybe what some of the pitching will be lacking. So let's talk 2022 in terms of some numbers. Sox won 93 games last year. You know, I'm seeing a lot of numbers around 95, you know, as high as maybe 98 up to 100. Is this team, you know, 3 or 4 games better than they were last year? Perhaps. It's tough. It's tough to win 100 games. I could see this team being 4 or 5 games better. I could see the Sox winning 97 games. You know, I think it's a foregone conclusion that the Sox win the division. Hopefully I'm not jinxing anything, but aside from some major injuries, the Sox are going to repeat as Central Division champs. I don't think they win by 13 games. I think maybe by 6 or 7, which is still comfortable. But I think the Tigers, that we'll talk more about in tomorrow's episode, they're ready. They're confident. They feel like they've done enough to try to compete with the Sox. So how far do the Sox go? You know, I get this question asked a lot, and I've posed it to a lot of people during this offseason. I think it would be an absolute disappointment if the Sox don't win the AL pennant and they don't get to the World Series. You Yes, they have to win a playoff series, but it's more than that for me. This team, how it's built, and I hope that there's still some additions being made. We do get back a healthy Lance Lynn. There's a lot of question mark. It's always about health, right? But there's depth. We've got a little bit of experience now and some playoff experience. So I'm feeling it. I think this team, this White Sox team, can win the NL pennant. Was talking about betonline.net earlier, and there's some great over-unders going to throw at you, but check that out. You can win some money here. Luis Robert home runs over-under right now is 30.5. I would go over. Eloy Jimenez home runs over-under 30.5. And that's another one. I think he's going to destroy that number. Cease wins. The over-under right now for Dylan Cease wins is 11.5. And I with all the Cy Young conversation, I could see him definitely going over that. Wins is such a difficult thing right now to think about. It's not something that we, really pay too much attention about. It's very important, but we know that there's other factors right now, especially regarding, how long some of these pitchers go in games. Giolito, the over-under for wins is 11.5 for him as well. I would see him going over that too. This one is tough for me. The Dallas Keuchel line on wins this season, the over-under set at 9. And I'm sorry, folks, but I feel like he's going to be under 9. I know there's a lot of folks that are excited about Dallas Keuchel making a bounce back. I don't have the confidence. I would go under on that. RBIs for Abreu. He's an RBI machine. Over-under set at 105.5. That's a good line. I like that. I think he's going to be over. Home runs for Abreu. Over-under set at 29.5. Here's where I think that's going to be under. Abreu gets beat up. He does not want to DH. He doesn't want to be taken out of the lineup. It's a grind, man. It's a physical grind. I don't see him hitting over. I don't see him touching 29, 30 home runs. I got him more around 25 home runs. Still a damn good season for Abreu, but that 29.5 is pretty high. That's all from betonline.net. Check out all the other White Sox bets. Win yourself some money. We are getting ready for opening day, Sox fans. 13 of the first 21 games are against AL Central teams. Some real opportunity to make ground. Want to thank you folks so much for joining me once again for Locked On White Sox. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Sox. Find me at Nick_GGTB. Thank you so much for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB with Paul Francis Sullivan. Call him Sully. He brings you unique perspectives on the major leagues past and present. It's free and available everywhere you find your podcasts. I'm Nick Morawski. Want to thank you for making us your first listen. Until next time, go Sox.